Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Last time, we started our journey through Peter Thiel's pretty provocative book, 0 to 1. We looked at his foundational business philosophy.
Right.
Today, we're going even deeper. We're peeling back the layers to understand the truly contrarian and sometimes, well, political ideology that underpins Thiel's entire worldview.
Yeah, and this isn't just about, advice for startups.
No, not at all.
It's really about a thinker who fundamentally questions the accepted norms. Society, technology, even our whole idea of what progress is.
Exactly. And what's so fascinating, I think, is how his business principles are just. They're completely tangled up with this broader philosophy.
Inextricably linked, yeah.
Yeah.
He's not just suggesting different ways to build companies. He's really advocating for a different way of thinking about the future itself.
He is. He's challenging assumptions that, honestly, many of us just take for granted every day.
Assumptions about work, about innovation, about how the world works.
And the sources you brought in today really help unpack this. We're going to explore Thiel's skepticism, his deep skepticism of what he calls indefinite optimism. His belief in the power of secrets, finding those hidden truths, and his emphasis on small, really determined groups.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you start to see why he's become such an influential figure. And let's be honest, sometimes a very polarizing figure in Silicon Valley.
Definitely polarizing.
It drives him to back ventures, support ideas that many others would just dismiss. They wouldn't even consider them.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Our mission today is to give you a clearer lens, a way to view innovation, progress, maybe even your own approach to solving problems. It's about understanding these deep currents shaping things.
Yeah, the undercurrents of technology and economics.
Okay, let's dive in. Let's unpack this contrarian ideology. So Thiel, at his core, is just a fierce proponent of thinking for yourself, right?
Absolutely. That 0 to 1 idea.
Going from 0 to 1 by creating something totally new, not just copying or making tiny improvements. He really distrusts widely accepted ideas.
He does, especially what he sees as the danger in just following the herd.
It's central to his work.
Yeah.
And it makes you ask that classic Thiel question, what important truth do very few people agree with you on?
That's the fundamental question, isn't it? And it makes us ask, why do so many people just gravitate towards what everyone else is doing?
It's a good question.
We see it everywhere, often with, well, terrible results. Think about personal finance. So many retirees might be told, just rely on the 4% rule for spending down your savings.
Oh yeah, the 4% rule. Very common advice.
Super common. Comes from a random walk down Wall Street. But it's often applied without really understanding the assumptions behind it or how it might fail in different economic times.
Right, it assumes a certain market return that might not happen.
Exactly. Or remember the foolish 4 stock strategy from the 90s?
Vaguely, yeah. That sounded simple.
It did. Pick the 4 lowest priced Dow stocks with the highest dividend yield. The intelligent investor just tears this apart, calls it cockamamie. Why? Because it's based on chance, not causation.
So no real logic behind it.
None. Stocks do well because the businesses do well, not because of some arbitrary price dividend formula. Yet thousands of people bought into it. It shows how easily we're swayed by simple patterns, even illogical ones. The herd just follows.
And it's amazing how deep this herd behavior runs. It reminds me of Michael Lewis's Liar's Poker, his description of the bond market back then.
Oh, great example.
He calls the European investors pure speculators doing crazy things with money for centuries, using these irrational systems, these chartist methods.
Which he basically called Rorschach ink blots.
Right, just seeing patterns where maybe there weren't any. And the wildest part, Lewis says the main reason they used these charts was simply because everyone else did.
That's the herd mentality in its purest form.
It wasn't about analysis or value. It was just collective action, driven by what everyone else was perceived to be doing. It created this self-feeding, irrational bubble. They weren't looking for truth. They were looking for consensus.
Precisely. And this connects so well to Daniel Kahneman's work in Thinking Fast and Slow on System 1 and System 2 thinking.
The fast, intuitive brain versus the slow, deliberate one.
Exactly. People often just go with the intuitive answer that's System 1 without really checking it actively, which is System 2's job. We follow the law of least effort.
We default to easy.
We do. And Kahneman says this failure to check is common when decisions are tough or when our attention is limited. It leads to what Nudge calls ditzy blunders.
Yeah. Where we need a little push, a nudge.
We need a nudge to engage our more thoughtful side. Thiel is essentially demanding we consciously engage System 2. Override the gut feeling, question the easy answer, look past the surface consensus.
It's like a mental discipline he's calling for.
It is, to fight our natural tendency towards cognitive ease.
And it's such a challenge, isn't it, to think differently when everything pulls you towards conformity.
So many forces.
Think about advertising. Eugene Schwartz in Breakthrough Advertising points out, you cannot contradict accepted images or beliefs. Ads work by tapping into existing desires, not challenging them.
They channel, they don't confront.
Or Peter Drucker's warning in The Essential Drucker against management by crisis and drives, that reactive style.
Right, where you're always putting out fires.
It leads to unbalanced efforts, chasing the urgent instead of the important. It's like the herd reacting, not strategizing. All these examples, they point to this deep societal habit of sticking with the familiar, even if it's not working.
Even it's self-defeating. It's easier than forging a new path. #tag 1.2. Skepticism of indefinite optimism and the illusion of progress. Thiel's skepticism goes even deeper into what he calls indefinite optimism.
Explain that a bit more.
It's this worldview where people generally believe things will improve, but they don't really know how or why. It's a kind of passive hope.
Like progress is just
Inevitable.
automatic.
Pretty much. Like magic. And this thinking, Thiel argues, fosters a really dangerous belief in indispensability. Theodore Levitt talks about this in Marketing Myopia.
The classic marketing text.
Right. Levitt uses the example of the petroleum industry. They once assumed they were totally secure, indispensable. They were blinded by their own success.
And then they faced unexpected threats, right?
Exactly. They had this indefinite optimism that their industry would just keep thriving, but they didn't have a definite plan for how to ensure that, especially with changing markets and new technologies coming along. They weren't asking the hard question.
Which contrasts so sharply with what Thiel calls definite optimism.
Completely. Definite optimism isn't just hoping for a better future, it's meticulously planning it, building it with a concrete vision, with actionable steps.
And Thiel looks around and sees mostly indefinite optimism.
He sees a lot of what he calls incremental things. He calls this horizontal progress, moving from 1 to n.
Refining, iterating, copying what's already there.
Instead of the vertical leap, the 0 to 1, which is creating something genuinely new, a real breakthrough.
Like, think about all the hype around fintech disruption maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, perfect example. The technological revolution in financial services gives us a pretty sobering picture there.
What did it find?
Well, many of those early fintech startups, despite all the fanfare, really struggled. They had trouble scaling, achieving profitability.
So they weren't really disrupting the banks.
Not in the way they initially promised. We saw this widespread pivot. They moved from trying to compete directly with banks, the B2C model, to basically licensing their tech to the banks or partnering with them, the B2B model.
Ah, so they became suppliers to the incumbents.
Pretty much. And funding for the really early stage fintechs even dried up later. From Thiel's perspective, that's a clear sign.
It wasn't 0 to 1.
It was more like a sophisticated 1 to n. Optimizing existing finance, not revolutionizing it.
So the insight Thiel would draw is, if you're just building a better bank instead of totally rethinking what finance could be, you're not really innovating.
You're competing in that red ocean.
It makes you question the whole disruption narrative. Is this truly new or just improved?
Exactly. And this indefinite optimism can lead to what Scott Galloway calls a great misstep in the fore. He points to the New York Times.
What was their misstep, according to Galloway?
By putting all their content online for free, prostituting our content, as he puts it rather bluntly, they basically let Google learn everything about their readers' interests.
So Google understood the Times' audience better than the Times did.
Arguably, yes. Which allowed Google to then charge 10 times more for ads targeted at those very readers. The Times was essentially exchanging dollars for dimes.
Wow. They mistook traffic for value capture.
They did. They gave away their unique asset, their content, hoping more eyeballs would somehow translate to profit without a definite strategy for how to make that happen.
That's indefinite optimism in action.
It's a classic case. An incumbent, hoping for the best in digital, failing to protect its core strength. They assumed more eyeballs meant more revenue, automatically.
Without a plan for how.
Which created this huge power opening, as Seven Powers would call it, for Google to swoop in and capture that value. Thiel would see this as a massive failure of definite planning, giving away the secret, the value of their unique content.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It suggests so much of what we call innovation is really just competition within existing frameworks. playing those red oceans.
Right. Not true creation.
And the deep insight is that indefinite optimism isn't just passive, it's a kind of strategic blindness.
It really is. It lulls companies, even individuals, into this false sense of security. It stops them from seeing threats until it's too late.
So Thiel would say, if you're not actively planning how to create the future,
You're basically accepting a future where you might just become irrelevant.
it's a call to be suspicious of easy stories about progress.
And demand more intention in how we actually build our future.
Okay, so Thiel's whole premise, his entire approach, it's about building something genuinely new, isn't it? Aiming for a monopoly, not just competing.
Yes, and he believes every great company is built on a secret.
A secret? What does he mean by that?
An important truth that very few people agree with you on. Something hidden, unconventional wisdom.
And that ties directly into the blue ocean strategy idea, right? Breaking away from the competition altogether.
Absolutely. Blue Ocean strategy is all about creating uncontested market space, getting out of the red oceans where everyone's fighting over the same customers, cutting prices.
Like sharks in bloody water.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to make the competition irrelevant, like their path 4. Look across complementary product and service offerings.
Give an example of that.
The classic one is Cirque du Soleil. They didn't just create a better circus, they blew up the idea of a circus.
They combine theater, dance, acrobatics.
Appealed to a whole new audience, adults willing to pay premium prices. They created a blue ocean. Or a simpler example they use, a movie theater, adding a babysitting service.
Addressing a related need.
Right. It's not just differentiation like slightly better seats for a higher price. It's redefining the problem, offering a total solution that removes a key barrier for parents who want to see a movie.
It's a different value curve entirely.
Totally. And Red Ocean Traps warns us not to confuse this with just, tweaking things or finding a small niche. Like the airline song, which was basically just Delta trying a low-cost niche. That's not a blue ocean.
So true blue ocean is a fundamental shift.
Yes, it opens up entirely new value.
Okay, let's unpack that. It's not just a better mousetrap. It's inventing a whole new way to deal with mice, or maybe realizing mice aren't the issue at all.
Exactly. It's a paradigm shift, an act of creation, not just competition.
So how do you do that? How do you find these secrets, these blue oceans?
Well, that's the core challenge, isn't it? It requires real invention, as the book 7 Powers puts it.
Breakthrough products, new business models.
That's the first step. But critically, it's not the last step. 7 Powers emphasizes you have to be ever watchful for power openings. You need to build a sustainable advantage, a moat.
Otherwise, your invention just gets copied.
Precisely. Look at Netflix early on. Streaming was novel, sure. But it could have easily become just another commodity business if they hadn't made that huge, risky bet on exclusives and originals.
Right, creating their own content.
That strategic move allowed Netflix to use its scale as a source of profound leverage. They went beyond just convenience. They built a content powerhouse with a defensible power. That was their secret, not just streaming, but controlling unique content.
That's a great example of moving from like an improvement streaming existing stuff to a real 0-to-1 creation their own content ecosystem.
It is, and it ties perfectly into Clayton Christensen's concept of disruptive technologies and the innovator's dilemma.
How so?
Christensen points out that mainstream customers often initially see no value in new, smaller, cheaper tech. His classic example is the 3.5-inch disk drive when 5.25-inch was standard.
They were seen as inferior at first.
Yeah, they held less data, the main metric everyone cared about, but these disruptive technologies open new markets. They appeal to different customers with different needs, maybe portability or lower cost in this case.
And then they improve over time.
Exactly. Eventually, they get good enough on the old metrics and offer new desirable things, and they take over the older markets. It's about seeing value where incumbents don't, often in overlooked niches. That's a classic Thiel secret. Finding value where the consensus sees none. Hashtag 2.2. The advantage of counterpositioning and heterodox models. And a really key way to build that sustainable power and protect your secret is through counterpositioning. That's another concept from 7 Powers.
Counterpositioning, what does that involve?
It means adopting a heterodox business model. Basically, a radically different way of doing business.
Okay, different how?
Different in a way that isn't just superior, but that also causes perceived collateral damage to the incumbent if they try to copy it.
Collateral damage.
Yeah. The book labels the incumbent W without power and the challenger S with power. The challenger's new model is structured so the incumbent literally can't copy it without hurting their existing profitable business. They're paralyzed by their own success.
So you do something so fundamentally different that the big established players, they just can't follow suit
Exactly.
without undermining themselves. Like our taxi example earlier.
Yeah.
If a traditional taxi company with its medallions and licensed drivers tries to launch an Uber-style service,
It blows up their whole model. It cannibalizes their existing business, alienates their drivers, devalues their assets, potentially invites regulatory chaos. You're stuck.
the cost of imitation is just too high for them.
Way too high. And this reflects a deeper point that Carlota Perez makes in Finance and Technical Change. She argues that the incumbent producers are likely to be among the main inertial forces resisting any new technological revolution.
Why is that?
Because their production capital is tied to its previous history of investment, knowledge, experience, personnel, and external networks. They've got too much invested in the old way, factories, distribution, brand, the whole ecosystem.
They have legacy systems, legacy thinking.
Absolutely. Financial capital, on the other hand, Perez notes, is fundamentally mobile. It can flow to new ideas, new ventures, unburdened by the past.
That's a crucial distinction.
It really helps explain why incumbents so often miss or resist these disruptive shifts. They can't effectively counterposition themselves against the newcomers because they're trapped by their past success.
Which means real innovation, the 0 to 1 stuff, often has to come from the outside, from those who aren't burdened by history.
From those with nothing to lose by building a totally different future.
Embracing a new model, not just patching up the old one. So, for you listening, the insight here is pretty profound. Question not just what the market needs, but how the market currently operates.
Yeah, can you find a way to serve a need so differently that the old guard is structurally unable to copy you?
That's where you might find a true secret. That's the path to counterpositioning. Now, Thiel is also known for valuing really strong, singular vision and leadership. He puts a lot of emphasis on the founder's unique insights.
He really does. Less focus on consensus, more on conviction.
He believes in the power of an individual or maybe a small, intensely focused group to see things differently and, crucially, to act on that insight.
And we see this illustrated so powerfully with Elon Musk, someone Thiel has talked about quite a bit, despite their own, complex history.
Right, both PayPal co-founders.
Peter Thiel himself admitted his VC firm, Founders Fund, had a blanket rule against investing in clean tech companies for about a decade. Why? Because overall, clean tech as a sector was quite bad.
It was seen as a graveyard for capital back then.
It really was. But Thiel acknowledges Musk figured something out that everyone else had missed. He sees Musk's success, especially with Tesla, as an indictment on the rest of us who've been working on much more incremental things.
Wow, an indictment. That's strong.
It is. He even suggests that the fact the world still doubts Elon is actually a reflection on the insanity of the world and not on the supposed insanity of Elon.
That perfectly captures Thiel's contrarian view.
It shows how one person's singular vision, backed by absolute conviction, can just defy the odds, defy conventional wisdom, defy market trends, precisely because they saw a secret others missed.
And the personal cost, the dedication involved, it's immense. Ashley Vance's biography, Elon Musk, paints this picture during the 2008 crisis.
Oh, is it brutal?
Musk looked like death itself, weight fluctuating, nightmares, borrowing hundreds of thousands from friends just to keep the lights on at Tesla and SpaceX.
Unbelievable pressure.
Yet, Vance writes, under that pressure, Musk gets hyper-rational, stays laser-focused. He essentially willed Tesla into existence. He wasn't just being smart, it was sheer force of will.
That kind of dedication, it really resonates with Yvon Chouinard's story in Let My People Go Surfing. Remember him talking about building good soil in his garden?
Yeah, taking years of effort, breaking shovel handles.
Chouinard emphasizes that true sustainability, real value creation, it's a long, hard slog. It's not quick or easy. Both Musk and Chouinard embody that almost ascetic, single-minded focus on a mission.
That dedication, it feels almost like a calling.
It absolutely aligns with Max Weber's concept of a calling from the Products and Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism.
How did Weber describe that?
Weber saw this psychological drive for devoted work, even for low pay, as stemming from interpreting work as a calling a kind of moral or even religious duty a sense of destiny.
Like it's what you have to do.
Exactly. And Weber argued this same ethic later helped legitimize capitalism by interpreting the employer's profit-making as their calling too. It points to this incredibly deep internal motivation, something that goes way beyond just money.
A mission that drives people to extraordinary lengths.
Thiel sees that. He recognizes that almost spiritual drive in the founders he backs. It's about building this intense, almost cult-like dedication to a specific, different future.
So true innovation, Thiel would argue, demands that kind of sacrifice, that willingness to endure hardship for a deeply held vision.
It's not just about having a good idea. It's about having the grit, the determination to be that singular force against a tide of doubt. Hashtag 3.2. The discipline of small, focused teams. And building on that idea of singular vision, Thiel really emphasizes small, intensely aligned teams, not large bureaucratic organizations.
What small teams?
Agility, clear purpose, shared understanding, these are crucial for those 0 to 1 breakthroughs. This echoes principles from books like The Discipline of Teams.
What does that book argue?
It argues powerfully that real team performance is less about feel-good empowerment and togetherness and much more about discipline and commitment to a common goal.
Discipline is key.
Absolutely. They lay out 6 elements of team basics that need to be applied rigorously: small size, complementary skills, common purpose, specific goals, a common approach, and crucially, mutual accountability.
Mutual accountability.
Without that discipline, even talented individuals can just flounder in a group. You get groupthink, or no one takes responsibility.
And that means, as the book says, not finger-pointing when things go wrong.
Right. Instead, focusing forward on what needs to be done collectively by us. It's about shared responsibility.
Where no one person is allowed to cause the team to fail.
That fosters collective ownership, shifts focus from blame to solving the problem together. That's fundamental to Thiel's approach. Pick the right small team, then give them intense focus and collective responsibility.
It sounds a bit like Peter Drucker again.
Very much so. In What Makes an Effective Executive, Drucker stresses that effective leaders get the right things done in the right ways. He gives 8 simple rules.
Like asking what needs to be done, developing action plans.
Taking responsibility for decisions, yes. And critically for teamwork, thinking and saying we, not I. That kind of clear, disciplined, collective mindset is vital for breakthrough results, especially when you're building something completely new with no map.
And it also means avoiding the trap of just talking about teamwork as an end in itself.
Oh, definitely. The discipline of teams warns against simply advocating teamwork or eulogizing teams. That separates the discipline from the actual performance. Teaming becomes the goal, not the result.
The book calls it naive to think you can become a team-based organization just by flipping a light switch.
It requires deep, intentional changes in culture, structure, a relentless focus on outcomes, and radical honesty within the team. That really clicks with Thiel's rejection of corporate fluff.
It sounds intense.
Yeah.
Like military focus.
Well, think about extreme ownership. Those commanders understood the absolute need to prioritize and execute under unbelievable pressure.
In Ramadi, under machine gun fire.
Their problem wasn't lack of firepower. It was a limfac, a limiting factor in the mundane art of management. Their old 20th century hierarchical structure was useless against an agile enemy.
They needed small, adaptable units.
Where leadership is decentralized, everyone is empowered, and everyone understands the mission. Thiel would say that's exactly the kind of structure needed to chase a 0 to 1 vision. Small, focused, disciplined, adaptable.
So what's the takeaway here for you, the listener? It suggests the structure and the culture of your group are just as vital as the talent in it. Maybe even more so.
Especially when you're aiming for breakthroughs. It's about creating an environment where discipline, commitment, collective ownership, they're paramount, even, or maybe especially, under intense pressure.
Now, Thiel is also famously critical of finance, particularly financial engineering and speculation that he feels doesn't create real value.
Yes, he sees much of the financial world as driven by that same herd mentality we talked about, rather than sound judgment.
Leading to booms and busts without real economic progress.
That's his critique, that capital gets misallocated chasing trends rather than funding fundamental innovation.
The Big Short seems like required reading here.
Absolutely. It powerfully illustrates this. Remember Michael Burry, the contrarian who bet against the subprime mortgage market.
Eccentric guy, yeah.
He faced unbelievable pressure, even threats of lawsuits from his own partners at Gotham Capital for making that bet. Joel Greenblatt, the guy who initially backed Burry, flew across the country just to tell him he was basically a liar for sticking to his guns.
Wow. Because he saw something nobody else wanted to see.
Exactly. It shows the extreme resistance you face as a contrarian when your secret truth threatens the establishment, threatens the collective delusion of the market. Burry found a terrible secret, and the mob, the market, tried to shout him down.
And the industry itself.
Yeah.
Steve Eisman, another trader in the book, called the subprime mortgage industry an unthinking machine that could not stop itself.
Yeah, Eisman said it made no economic sense, but it became the most powerful engine of profits and employment on Wall Street.
That sounds exactly like Thiel's point about Elon Musk, that the world doubting him reflects the world's insanity, not his.
It's the same dynamic. Consensus and the drive for short-term profit overriding rational judgment, even in systems supposedly built on rationality. The mob mentality takes over.
And this raises a huge question Thiel often pokes at. What happens when finance disconnects from the real economy?
Right. When financial activity vastly outgrows trade in actual goods and services. Mariana Mazzucato explores this in The Value of Everything.
What does she argue?
She shows how trade in financial instruments exploded, dwarfing trade in real products. This led to systemic instability, crashes like 2008. And who gets bailed out? The banks. Taxpayers foot the bill.
And then the banks.
Actually profited from government's plight. Mazzucato points out they made huge sums from derivatives on sovereign debt after the crisis they helped create.
That's incredible.
This massive disconnect between financial gains and real economic contribution, where finance seems to create fragility, not value. That's a core Thiel critique. He sees it as one-to-one gambling, not zero-to-one creation.
So for you listening, this is a serious indictment. Are our financial systems actually serving society? Or just themselves?
And it highlights how herd behavior in finance isn't just abstract. It has devastating real-world consequences. Hashtag tag 4.2, the dangers of consensus and faulty theory. And Thiel's contrarianism, it doesn't stop at finance. It extends to challenging academic consensus, political consensus, ideas that are widely accepted but might be, in his view, fundamentally wrong, like hidden faulty theories guiding us astray.
Who influenced him here? Hayek.
Friedrich Hayek is a major influence, yes. Hayek faced intense backlash for the road to serfdom. People called it the most sinister offensive against democracy, accused him of Hitlerian contempt.
Why such strong reactions?
Because he argued during World War II, no less, that central planning, even with good intentions, inevitably leads down a path towards tyranny. He highlighted how willing people are to sacrifice their liberty for security, a deeply controversial idea then, and arguably still now. It challenged fundamental beliefs about government and freedom.
And Hayek also had this idea about the betrayal of the clerics, right? Not religious clerics.
No, he meant intellectuals. Those who, in his view, become handmaidens of political and national causes, abandoning objective truth-seeking. He saw it starting with German scholars. This really mirrors Thiel's deep suspicion of mainstream thought, of established institutions.
A skepticism that even supposed truth seekers can get caught up in flawed ideologies.
Driven by politics or social pressure, rather than pursuing truth wherever it leads. It's a profound critique of intellectual conformity.
It reminds me a bit of Keynes, too, challenging the consensus of his day.
Absolutely. John Maynard Keynes, in the general theory, went right after the classical school's presumptuous error,
Which was?
believing that interest rates and investment just automatically adjust to the optimal level. Keynes argued against that, saying things like a flexible wage policy could actually cause great instability and make business planning futile. He said it could only work in a highly authoritarian society.
Radical ideas for the time.
Totally. He also slammed protectionist trade policies, calling them a treacherous instrument that injures all alike. Like Hayek, Keynes wasn't afraid to challenge the fundamental truths everyone else accepted.
It really seems the biggest blunders often stem not just from one person messing up, but from a whole way of thinking being flawed. A faulty theory everyone accepts.
Exactly. Think about the Ford Edsel. Business Adventures tells that story so well.
Ford spent a fortune on research.
A massive personality crusade, extensive market research for the name, the design, only for it to bomb spectacularly.
Why did it fail?
The core assumption that the market actually needed a car positioned between Ford and Mercury was just wrong. All the consensus-driven research couldn't fix a flawed initial premise. It wasn't a lack of effort, it was a failure of independent insight. They were trapped by a faulty market theory.
So the deep lesson here is what?
It's the constant need for individuals and companies to question those established truths, to be willing to go against the grain, take chances, even if you make mistakes. Like Sam Walton with his early shopping center ventures.
He lost money on those, didn't he?
Yeah, he called one the biggest mistake of my business career, lost $25,000, which was a lot then. But he said he learned a heck of a lot. True learning often comes from challenging assumptions, from those mistakes, not from just playing it safe and conforming.
Thiel would probably say those mistakes are how you find the secrets.
Precisely. They're steps on the path.
So for you, the listener, the takeaway here is huge. Be wary of comfortable consensus.
Challenge the theories that seem too neat, too easy, too widely accepted.
Because often the real opportunities, the hidden truths, they lie exactly where the crowd isn't looking. Okay, so if Thiel is so critical of the status quo, this indefinite optimism, the herd mentality, these faulty theories, what does he actually propose we do?
Well, it all comes back to being deeply proactive.
Not just reacting, but consciously building the future.
Exactly. Not just letting it happen or hoping for the best. It's about intentional action.
Peter Drucker's advice seems relevant again here.
Very much so. In What Makes an Effective Executive, Drucker says flat out, executives are doers, they execute. Knowledge is basically useless until it's translated into deeds.
So it's about action, planned action.
Yes. Plan with desired results, probable restraints, future revisions, check-in points. It's about being intentional. Moving from 0 to 1 requires deliberate, thoughtful action, not just optimizing what exists or waiting for problems to show up. You have to shape things.
And Drucker also warns against letting the flow of events determine what he does.
Right. You need criteria which enable him to work on the truly important. This sounds a lot like prioritizing Stephen Covey's Quadrant 2 activities in the 7 Habits.
The important but not urgent stuff.
Being proactive, not reactive. And Covey's radical idea that if you think the problem is out there, then that thought itself is the problem.
It starts with internal responsibility.
That radical self-responsibility for your chosen response to the situation. That's fundamental to the entrepreneurial mindset Thiel champions. It allows you to make happen each day the things that will enable you to fulfill your personal mission statement. You own your agency.
You're not just a victim of circumstances.
Thiel himself embodies this. He's not just observing Silicon Valley. He's actively trying to shape its direction.
It also makes me think of Satya Nadella's turnaround at Microsoft, described in Hit Refresh.
Good connection. Nadella emphasized embracing new paradigms, ubiquitous computing, ambient intelligence, and crucially, changing the culture.
To build long-term value by being true to our identity and innovating.
Right. It was a conscious, proactive choice to stop just living off our past successes or cash cowing the business. He pushed for a future-focused approach.
He initiated a 0 to 1 mindset shift for a giant company.
It shows it can be done, even in large organizations, if the leadership is truly committed to proactive creation. And Thiel's vision, it doesn't just stop with how we build companies now. It extends way out into the far future, especially with artificial intelligence.
Right. In 0 to 1, he talks about strong AI.
Not just AI that's good at chess or Go, but computers that could eclipse humans on every important dimension. This is an incremental progress he's talking about.
I know, this is a fundamental existential shift, a true 0 to 1 creation that could change everything.
It's a profound idea. Think about it. Technology historically has been about increasing our mastery over nature, reducing the role of chance in our lives. We build machines for predictability, for control.
To make things less random.
But strong AI, Thiel warns, could actually bring chance back with a vengeance. It's a stark reminder that not all tech progress is necessarily controllable or even benevolent.
That some creations might unleash forces we can't predict or manage.
He suggests that while we've tried to replace fate with freedom through technology, strong AI might reintroduce a new, maybe even more powerful, unpredictable fate into the equation.
And he uses a really striking metaphor for it.
He calls strong AI a cosmic lottery ticket.
A lottery ticket.
His words are stark. If we win, we get utopia. If we lose, Skynet substitutes us out of existence.
Wow. Utopia or extinction.
It's not just a tech prediction. It's a deeply philosophical stance on the immense risks and rewards of the most radical kind of innovation. It's the ultimate departure from that passive, indefinite optimism that just assumes AI will work out fine.
It's the ultimate 0 to 1 creation with the highest possible stakes.
It's not about disrupting an industry. It's about potentially disrupting humanity itself, our survival, our very definition.
So what does this mean for us? for how we think about the future.
It's a call, I think, to be incredibly thoughtful, maybe even deeply cautious about the most powerful technologies we're pursuing.
To understand that progress isn't automatically good without very clear intentional direction, without a definite vision for the future we actually want.
It demands definite optimism, not indefinite hope. It forces us to ask, are we consciously building a path to utopia, or are we just blindly rolling the dice on our own existence? Hashtag outro.
Well, today we've really gone deep into the complex, often controversial ideology of Peter Thiel. We moved beyond just the startup advice in 0 to 1 to try and understand the contrarian philosophy driving him.
Yeah, we explored his skepticism of indefinite optimism, how that pushes him towards true foundational innovation.
We looked at his belief in finding secrets, creating those blue oceans, often with small, intensely determined groups.
And we touched on his critical view of modern finance's speculative side, and his gaze towards the profound questions around technologies like strong AI.
His ideas really push us, don't they? They compel us to question the beliefs we just take for granted.
To move beyond just competing, towards genuinely creating something new.
And to really consider the deep implications of building a different future in business, tech, or society.
It's fundamentally a call for radical intentionality, for personal responsibility in a world that often rewards just going along with the flow.
A challenge to proactively shape our destiny, not just passively wait for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this for one final thought. Some of you to really take away and chew on. In a world that so often rewards conformity, rewards just making things slightly better, Thiel's whole ideology basically asks you to consider.
What is the single unconventional truth you believe that almost nobody else agrees with you on?
And, maybe more importantly, what are you actively doing right now to build that future based on that truth? Not just thinking about it, but building it.
It really raises that crucial question, the one only you can answer. Are you truly building something new, something that moves the world from 0 to 1? Or are you mostly just refining what's already here, competing in a crowded space?
Your answer to that, and perhaps even more, your actions based on that answer. That might just define your own 0 to 1 journey.
A profound thought to end on.
Until next time, keep digging deeper, keep asking those tough, uncomfortable questions, and keep building the future you truly believe in.